In the UK this year, they were celebrating and commemorating 118 years of women's suffrage, universal women's suffrage in the UK. 100 years this year. Let me tell you this. In Sierra Leone, in 1792, women in Freetown had equal voting rights with men. It was the first in the world. In the world. And as I said, if you don't believe me, you can read the book Rough Crossings by Simon Sharma, or Break the Chains by Adam Hochschild, or if you don't believe them either, you can go to the National Archives in Britain at Kew Gardens and you can see the document there. It gave women voting rights in 1792. Nowhere else in the world even had it for even 100 years after that date. So, Sierra Leone, be proud of the fact that we have been pace setters and trendsetters going way back. And as I said,
distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my task here, I have to make it very short because I know most of us are eager to go to the next session, is to present a brief synopsis of the agribusiness sector in Sierra Leone. And it goes. Basically, I am presenting, I am a presenter and I'm coming from the Sierra Leone Chamber for Agribusiness Development, SLeCAD. So I'll give you a brief rundown about SLeCAD, opportunities in Sierra Leone that exist in the agribusiness sector. Okay, I have to come closer to the mic. And then what are the investment opportunities for diasporans, the challenges, and what impact will it bring when diasporans invest in Sierra Leone? Basically, you know, this, the Chamber for Agribusiness Development, formerly known as the Sierra Leone Chamber of Agriculture, was established to promote private investment in the agriculture sector. This was championed by the Ministry of Agriculture with support of the Ministry of Trade, for us to see how best we can mirror and focus more on agriculture and promoting agribusiness and agro-industrialization. So the Chamber functions as a forum, as a private sector forum. Most of you that are sitting, participants that are sitting here can attest to that. Most of them are members of the Chamber. And our coverage is all over Sierra Leone. We have a farmers I don't know. Is it going? We interact with farmers, smallholder farmers, agribusinesses in this country to see how best we can support the agribusiness and agro-industrialization sector. Our mandate is, of course, that's been spoken about, is to bring all the actors together. We talk of the farmers, the smallholder farmers. Basically, the smallholder farmers lack skills and lack knowledge, the technology, the finances. So how can we be able to break through and get them out of poverty? We need the agribusinesses that have the financial muscle to interact with them, and also have the technical or the technological muscles to interact with them, train them, so that they can produce raw materials to supply those industries, to make sure we add value to them and make them available to Sierra Leone. And possible, if our products saturate the market, we can export. Key areas of our focus is basically on information sharing, which is most likely power. We want to know who is producing where, what is it producing, what's the quality, the quantum, which is very important, such that we might give that kind of information to any big agribusiness that is established anywhere, to be able to link with that farmer to buy that product and make sure they support industry running. We also forge ahead with strategic partnership. For example, last year, 2017, we organized this first forum with ODA, Office of Diaspora Affairs. SLeCAD was part of that, SLPMC, and we also have Chamber of Commerce. All of us came together to see how best we can bring in diasporans, agribusiness and local agripreneurs, and also our investors, foreign direct investors, put them together and see how best we can make agribusiness investment possible in Sierra Leone. We also make reliable information on market information. For example, many speakers have said currently we import close to $200 million to $300 million worth of rice. And many investors or even our diaspora brothers do not know about this huge opportunity that we have in this country and even beyond. So we have such information, we share with partners such that they have it and make money out of it. We also think we work around trade financing. We are working with many partners that promote trade financing around the world. What are the pointers of the opportunities that we have in Sierra Leone and beyond? Over and again, research has shown that currently Africa, we have the, Africa is now going into trade liberalization. So you should know that we have close to, Africa is importing, Africa's food import bill is around 750 billion. Or 700, I mean half a billion, half a trillion, yeah. So by 2025, if we don't work very hard, it will go to 1 trillion. You know what that means? That's a huge opportunity for all of us that are sitting down here. We also think that there is an opportunity. We have the AGOA, the EU. To date, I mean, SLeCAD folks sitting down here will tell you that up to date, we have not been able to see how best we can tap in utilizing that opportunity, that market opportunity. Even EU, up to date. So that's a huge opportunity for all of us, the EU or Africa-EU trade and Africa-US trade. We also think for Sierra Leone, of course, many speakers have already said this. I mean, our food import bill is already close to, I mean, $500 million. So that's a huge opportunity for you guys to come in and see how best you can support. If I might just say briefly, break them down, rice is around 200 to 250 billion. Egg in this country, we are consuming, our consumption, I mean, we are consuming around 168 million eggs required for Sierra Leone. To date, we are only able to achieve 28 million. So that's a huge, you see, if you subtract the difference, that's a huge gap. Baby food is around 90 to 100 million. We have belly mixed food here. It is a very good opportunity to partner with him and even to support him with more finances to make sure at least we make use of that opportunity. Poultry is around 100 to 120 million. I mean, cooking oil is around 60 to 80 million. Onion is around 160 to 20 million. Also, the other opportunity we have large youth unemployment, and labor is very cheap in Sierra Leone. Besides, also, the agriculture sector is yet on tap, around 5 to 10%. So you can see what we have. We also have abundant irrigation. Water is abundant. Everywhere you go, you see water. We have over 7 to 8 rivers in Sierra Leone. Presently, the much more problem we have was technology. Now we have SLeCAD in Sierra Leone that is producing very high hybrid seeds and making it available to the doorstep of farmers and agribusinesses. And also we have the government will the new direction. You've heard what the Minister of Agriculture and all the ministers have said today. That's been on the score. So the new direction is rightly focusing on that. Possible areas of investment, of course, I've already said that AGOA, EU market, we are yet. Packaging is also a big problem in this country. To date, we don't have a packaging industry in this country. So it is good to invest in it. Most of our industries or our agribusiness, agripreneurs import packaging, bags or materials from overseas. So it's an opportunity. Storage facilities, we don't have cooling systems. I don't know, Ajasundu is here. They produce vegetables right from Kabbalah. By the time they reach in Freetown, because there is no cooling system, 30 to 40 or 50% is already gone bad. So we have those sectors. We also have access to market information system. This is very, very important. I was just recently in East Africa. People pay money to specific institutions to be able to get market information. We also have renewable energy. The agriculture sector, agribusiness sector lead need energy for us to be able to go industrialize. So that's also, banking is also very important. You've all had, the banking sector really is not one that is encouraging agribusinesses. So they are charging around 30%. So we'll encourage investors and even Sierra Leonean diasporans to come in and invest in that sector and make it. One of the areas that we think that is very, very important, Nigeria has done it. Why not Sierra Leone? We are producing huge cassava in this country. To date, we are not adding value to our cassava. In Nigeria, 40% of every wheat flour bread that is consumed contains cassava. If we can do that, statistics shows that around close to 50 million worth of wheat bread is imported in this country. If you take 30 or 40% of that, that's a huge amount of money to do business. Obasanjo did it, why not in Sierra Leone? That's the former minister who is now the ADB president. Also, poultry is very, very important and is key. You see the amount of money. Most of the poultry product we eat in Sierra Leone is imported. So even now, local eggs are hard to get. So we are importing. So around $100 to $120 million. We hope we can get you brothers from the diaspora and investors and agripreneurs can invest in that. It's very key. We also have feed mill. To date, we don't have an assured quality, stable feed mill in this country. Most of the poultry farms in this country are importing feed. Why should we continue that way? That's a huge area of investment. Also equipment. You know, we don't have equipment in this country. We think people will invest in that and that will be fine. Rice, local rice. Since then, we produce local rice in this country with SLPMC and other institutions. To date, it's still a problem. Packaging it very well, making it available. So we hope investors here from Japan and even our brothers and sisters from the diaspora can make use of this opportunity to make sure that the $200 or more million that gap can be closed. That was the the former president and the former minister were launching this product. See how excited we were. So we'll be excited if people can come in and invest in that sector. Fish farming is also very important. To date, we don't have fish farming in any part of this country. So it is very, very key because our protein intake is very high and even within the sub-region. If you go to Ghana, Ghana is doing massive fish farming. And if you go to US, most of their fish are exported there, tilapia and so on. So Sierra Leone, why not? We also look at the cocoa sector. We are harvesting our cocoa here, dry them and export to Europe. What is wrong if we had value here for us to get our chocolate? So that's also, an area of investment. We're also looking at dairy. The livestock sector is still very low. We hope people can come and invest in it because our intake most of the milk we consume locally and even in the sub-region, is imported. We look at also vegetables. Recently when I had discussions with the management of this hotel, Radisson Blue, he was telling me that most of their vegetables are imported in this country. That's unacceptable. So you see, so that's also a huge area of investment. Most of the hospitality industries in this country still import onions, most of these vegetables. What's bad if people can invest in this? And even for export market is good. So we have few challenges, of course. They're always there. We've always named them. Low productivity is one. Lack of access to finance. Lack of access to input. So those challenges that I mentioned here are huge opportunities for you to come and invest in. Because if you invest in them, I am sure we can help to transform this country and every new direction moving forward. We also have high post-harvest losses. Those are all areas. For example, people can come in and invest in machines to be able to process rice, to process, vegetables, to process, milk, to process our own juice in this country. But it's not happening. So most of our foods are got wasted. So those are all areas. Skills building is also very important. Financial management, entrepreneur, and business development skills are challenges. If we allow or we encourage, today we are here to encourage you, our brothers and sisters from the diaspora, our investors from Japan, and the local agripreneurs, for you to come in and invest in Sierra Leone. If you invest in Sierra Leone, what will be the necessary impact? We'll create jobs, improve food security, reduce poverty across the country and beyond. and then turn Sierra Leone into a net exporter. Somebody was talking about import substitution. It's all about that. Instead of us importing more, what happens at the end of the day? We export more, or we go at a point where we import no more, but we consume what we eat, and maybe in the long run we can be able to export. We also improve. I spoke about import substitution. We help to expand government tax base. So we stop going to donors for money and so on and so forth. Government will have a lot of money to be able to invest in education, as they are now prioritizing education and many other things. We'll improve on the GDP and many other things. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening.
My name is Amadou Masali, and I live in the United States, so that makes me a Diaspora JC. But I'm not here alone. I brought some friends, and I would like to introduce them at this moment. The Diaspora guests that we invite via IOM. Can you please stand up, and can we please give them a round of applause? They took out some of their busy schedules to be here with us today. Stand up, guys. We have 11 people. 4 different cities: Atlanta, Georgia, Washington, DC, Toronto, Ontario, and London, UK. We talked to Sierra Leoneans and got a feel for what is it that we want to do in their country of ancestry. This exercise was a deep dive into diaspora and their sentiments or investment appetite for their home country, Sierra Leone. And what you see here is part of the results of what we found out during that exercise that lasted about a year. So, you know, Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora, even those here, they think education and healthcare are the 2 most important things than anything else. So even when it comes to investments, that's where they prefer to invest their monies. Education, healthcare, but agriculture was there. So if we took off our philanthropic hats, I bet you agriculture would have been #1. But for some reason, education and healthcare are pretty important to all Sierra Leoneans, regardless of whether they're in diaspora or at home. So, next slide, please. Another thing we found out in that result, and this is one slide that really is what's driving me to do what we do. Can we change the slide, please? The next slide speaks to the interest of us as investors from the diaspora into our home country, and the actual investments being done. So the orange says, I am a diaspora, this is my interest in this particular field, property for personal use, for example. But what's actually happening is the blue one. So there's a wide gap between interest and actuality. The same slide here, a similar slide speaks to the same thing. We have Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora. That's too fast. Can we go back one? Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora, what is their interest? I mean, how interested are they investing in their country of ancestry? Again, high interest to invest, but actual investments too low. So we're about to change that narrative. That's part of why we're here. The diaspora, they can play 8 roles in terms of working with enterprises in country. A consumer, I can buy Benny cake, for example, from the United States, or Gary from the United States. Investor, there are some Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora that are ready and willing to invest in this country in the agribusiness sector. Some are even doing it. You just heard from Prince Nalo, one of the, in my opinion, one of the biggest diaspora investors in the agribusiness sector. You will also hear from Cyril Fortune a little later. He runs massive farms. He's also a diaspora investor and entrepreneur. Skilled professional, well, for a particular given field, let's say, I don't know, talk about something in fish farming. Well, there are Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora that understand how fish farms work. Or any other discipline for that matter, and we can tap into them as skilled professionals. Similarly, connector, that's my favorite one because I feel like I'm a connector. I like to connect people. And in this room, there are 3 companies that have willingly, even before this forum came up, I had willingly offered to connect them to export markets in the United States. One of them is Dr. Zed Bassoon with Benny Mix, Dr. Brenda James with Home Foods, and then there's Bridgetta with Lambano. I had already said, I want to, do your stuff for you in the diaspora at no cost to them. But now I'm rethinking my, because if they make a lot of money, I want to make some too, right? That's only fair. All right. So these are the kinds of things that we can do: advisor, champion, coach, or mentor that Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora. If we're aligned to companies here, enterprises here, we can do some of these things, and we can do some of these things for free, because we said I mean, in our survey, many Sierra Leoneans had said that they would do this on a voluntary basis, if only we can make the right arrangements, and align, competencies to enterprises and vice versa. Next slide. The next thing I want to talk about, those of us in the diaspora, we have a lot of disposable income. In fact, we send money here in remittances more than ODI and FDI combined. And that's just a formal one, yeah? Many of us bring monies in our suitcases that are not recorded in our purses. Thousands of, hundreds, if not millions of dollars are transferred like that informally. So if you add that to our already bigger contributions in terms of remittances, more so than ODI and FDI, we are being remiss as a country for not tapping into that. Now we're all happy that some Japanese private companies are here. I'm happy too. But we must not forget our diaspora. In fact, our diaspora has more potential to invest in our country than any foreign direct investor. I know this because I've talked to many diasporans who believe that they can do this. We just need to know how to tap it properly. All right? Bankable projects. The other day I was at the office of the Chamber of Commerce, and we were having the discussions around bankable projects. About a few hours later, maybe it was the next day, the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce posted something on WhatsApp defining bankable projects. So what constitutes a bankable project? I want to ask the CEO himself so he can explain that definition for us. But that would take too much time. There are three things that are necessary for a project to be considered bankable. Number one, it has to have collateral. Number two, it should have cash flows. Hopefully they're positive cash flows. And the third thing is that, I can't remember the third one. Can you help me now, James? I actually forgot the third one. Collateral. Well, no, that's the first one I said. Collateral. Cash flow, positive one. Oh, I remember. And the opportunity to make money on your investments. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. So, in short, a bankable project is one in which a financier or lender will put money in. Once that happens, it's bankable. Yeah? So, we need to find bankable projects in this country. The diaspora, that is one of our problems. We cannot find projects that we can invest in this country. I may have $200,000 in a savings account earning less than 1%. Yeah, my Bank of America account, if I leave my money in the savings account, I will earn less than 1% in a given year. Yes, in America, less than 1% on 200,000. But if I take half of that and put it in an enterprise here, that will give me 6%. Am I being foolish? So, if we have bankable projects in this country, I, Amadou Masali, will be able to sell those projects in the diaspora. I mean, I won't do it by myself, but I just know, I know what to tell my people in the diaspora to invest their monies here and gain profits versus gaining 1% when inflation every year is about 3.5% in the United States. So every year, if I leave my money in my savings account, I lose about 2.5% just by leaving it there because inflation, not to mention taxes, So, in short, diaspora, when we see bankable projects, let us invest our monies in this country. It is important for your pockets. It is important for our national development, which some of us are really passionate about. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Next slide, please. I'm about to wrap up because I know we're behind time. FDI. We know there are some very handsome Japanese private companies representatives in town. We appreciate you. Some of the things we're going to talk about in this room may not be, related to you or relevant to you. However, if you're interested in investing in this country, you will have to listen to it anyway because it would impact you in the near future if you are an investor in this country. So the policies that we mentioned earlier, for example, there's no policy for diaspora in Sierra Leone. There's none. We don't have a diaspora policy in terms of we're going to treat diasporas differently from FDI and so forth. So whatever we talk about here is all inclusive. However, I want us to compete with the foreign direct investors from Japan. We the diaspora. We want to compete with you guys. You invest in one company, we'll pick two. Yeah? That's the challenge I want to set coming out of this room. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but in the near future, we are optimistic that this event is not in vain. Because you know why? There's a time for everything. And in my heart, as I stand here, I believe the timing is more than right for us to take the private sector to where it ought to be. We've been waiting for far too long, and this is the time to make it happen. New government, new administration, new direction, interest in agriculture, high interest in cultivating rice. I mean, we import $200 million worth of rice on an annual basis. That's a market already existing in our country for ourselves without having to import. $200 million strong. So let's wake up, Sierra Leoneans. Let's try to do this thing in the best interest of our in the best interest of our pockets too, but more so focusing on national development. Because our self-interest can align with our national interest. Where we have problems sometimes is when our self-interest precede our national interest. So I don't want to get political, but I know politics, and investments, they go hand in hand in some cases. Yeah, I will leave it at that. Is there another slide? No. That's it. Thank you very much for your attention. We're going to have a ball over the next 2 days. And I want to reaffirm that this investment forum will not be in vain, because there's a time for everything. Have you ever heard the cage bird sing? I'm singing now. There's a time for everything. This time is now. Thank you, Mr. Leone.
Everybody sounds a bit or looks a bit hungry for lunchtime, so I'll only be a few minutes. Like the MC said, I am Sia Conde, and like Amadou Masale, I am a Diaspora JC myself. So I work at IOM London and on diaspora activities, so migration for development specifically, and one of them is diaspora engagement. I'll just give you a few overview. I do have a video to share with you, because a number of you I appreciate are local, although we do have some diasporas in the room, some diaspora returnees in the room. But you've been hearing the word diaspora, 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 and I'm guessing some of you are just exhausted by the word, to be honest. But this video is essentially to give you the insight of how far Sierra Leone commodities have reached so far. Because it takes us back to what Amadou just said, which is that diasporas can play 8 roles, and this video can give you some sort of insight into the roles they are already playing in the international space with Sierra Leone agro-commodities, and also probably give you opportunities to identify something that you could engage with a diaspora, maybe when they return for holiday in December and you see them and the activities they do. But before we go on to the video, I'd just like to give you a brief overview in terms of what IOM does in this space. So what IOM, which is what this forum falls under, what IOM considers as migration for development is essentially a way that IOM can facilitate opportunities to contribute to a better understanding of the links between international migration and development in order to harness development potential of migrants for the benefit of the societies, so in terms of their countries of origin and heritage, and also in terms of the host countries where they currently exist or live, and also for the migrants themselves, because what Amadou just said is, as a migrant or as a diaspora as he is, for him it's beneficial to be an investor or contributor to development, because it means he has more money in his pocket, so it means his life is a bit more better. And with regards to diaspora and development specifically, IOM considers that we have to facilitate, to engage diasporas, to enable them to be investors and contributors to change, and to empower them. because by empowering them, we're creating the space for them to also empower local communities and also be able to deal with the world in terms of foreign direct investors. And one of the 4 ways I do this, because I do diaspora activities covering the entire African continent. I work with Rwandans, I work with Ghanaians, I work with Somalians, etc., etc. Sierra Leone just being one. And for me, it's an added advantage as a Sierra Leonean myself in terms of my heritage and this project and the importance of it. And so what we do as a whole with IOM and Diaspora is we do research, we do surveys, we also are in the debate in terms of remittances. As you've heard the word thrown around a lot, the money you send and the account and how you pay for those monies to come to your countries of origin. We also do skills transfer. A lot of you may be aware of what IOM did for the past year, which was to bring healthcare professionals from the UK, from other countries around the world to come to places like Koinadugu to give back to the communities their expertise. And then we also do trade and investment now in terms of what diasporas can do for development and change. I'm going to wrap up here and just allow you to have a chance to look at the video and then we can all go for lunch. Thanks for your time.
International. We are doing cassava leaf, okra, potato leaf, all the staple food of Sierra Leone, we're doing it in the UK. We import, we process, we education in terms of establishment. The competition is too much. Ghanaian product is coming, Nigerian product is coming, Gambian product is coming, Kenya, Uganda. Look at, for instance, let me show you at Uganda packages. You see, well organized, well packed, well filled. Even you open it to inspect, the sooner you see it, you will love to get it.
We need a standard in how we treat the cacao, because cacao is the heritage of the country. In Ghana, there are standards. Here, I drive down Kenema High Road, in terms of the main road. I see people dry cacao on the road. Cacao it's one of those crops whereby it's very sensitive. It takes in gases.
As I mentioned at the earlier before lunch, an insight into what's being done. So just as somebody mentioned earlier about the diasporas being brand ambassadors for Sierra Leone in terms of wherever they live around the world, that's just an insight into just one part of London, just the southeast of London, and what's being done by diasporas. They create businesses, they create employment, both in London and in Sierra Leone, and they also are brands. They showcase what can be done. And I should just throw what is an everyday fact. 50% of what we eat in Sierra Leone, in addition to it being shared by other communities in the West African region, in terms of, for example, our crane in Nigeria is called ewedu. You go to a Pakistani or Indian store in the UK, they call it molokai, but it's exactly the same. So imagine if we can expand on our export, we can grow and source locally. We have a huge market base, not just within other countries in West Africa, but also countries across the Indian Ocean in Asia. At the close, there was a few messages. I thought maybe I'll just read through them in case, because I realized it was maybe a bit short and some of you may not have had the chance to read through them. So it essentially starts saying the Ebola outreach in 2014, it halted the economic growth in Sierra Leone, and advances such as in agriculture grounded to a halt, which a lot of us are aware about. That led to the fact that we couldn't realize the growth forecast we had of 11.3% for that year. But then since 2016, according to estimates by the African Development Bank, which is 2018 estimates as of June this year, Sierra Leone is growing at an average rate year on year since 2016 to now of 6.1%. And it has been identified, which Amadou mentioned earlier, that the Sierra Leone diaspora itself can be key partners in this growth. It was estimated by that report by World Bank in 2015 that about 40% of the diaspora already invest in Sierra Leone. And it was also mentioned earlier, which the video also highlighted, that there's a keen interest in the agribusiness sector, and it is the third sector in which the diaspora is interested in investing. But again, that was pointed out earlier, there's a difference between interest and actual investment, and I suppose that's what this forum is for, is taking it from where it is at the moment to where we want it to be. So essentially we're closing on saying, many of the diasporas, which, as you've seen, and the outreach, I must say, was done over a week-and-a-half period, and we have nearly 24 hours worth of footages, and the challenges and opportunities identified are very vast, but they can be sort of narrowed into three big areas, which I guess it's for people who are involved in policy and so on and so forth to consider, which is the lack of infrastructure, in terms of transportation, in terms of where they source and where they store. A few of them have been mentioned, so I'm not going to go through the list. The other is property rights. How do you show your investment when you do send money back home and you ask somebody to lease a land or whatever it is they do? How can you ensure you're able to exploit that as private property without having to deal with concerns and other people encroaching and so on and so forth? And another is logistics, and that leads on to what I think is the term being used now, the ecosystem generally of agriculture and agribusiness. It's not just that farmer, it's not just that exporter, it's not just that consumer, it's everything else. It's technological assistance, it's the people who provide data, and so many other things in between. And essentially, the diaspora have identified that these are the key areas that prevent them from moving from the interest they have to the actual tangible, bankable investment they make. So we are concluding saying, indeed, Sierra Leone is well positioned for development and for trade with the wider world, and thankfully we have Japanese delegates here who you could say represent the view from the outside world on the potential of Sierra Leone, hence why they're here. But also for us to know that diaspora can be key partners in that journey, not just as individuals in terms of they making their private investment, but there's been a lot of they can be people who link diaspora to diaspora, creation of jobs and alleviation of poverty. They can be people who provide all sort of areas and skills, and they can transfer skills to local companies. They can also influence policy, and hopefully this forum will provide sort of a base off which we can jump, if that makes sense. And thank you for your time, and we will show this over the course of the next couple of days. It's also now available on YouTube. It's been shared on Facebook and WhatsApp. I'd encourage everyone, if you want a link to it, please let me know. I'll send it to you. Please pass it on. And yeah, thank you very much for your time.